Today's Toy Spot, we are having a look at the Diamond Select toys. This is Ghostbusters Select Gozer the Destructor. This deluxe action figure has some accessories and also a diorama base, so if you've been collecting the other Ghostbusters dioramas, this will be an accompanying piece to that to build your very large, and I might add extremely large, top to the building, of course, the coming of Gozer and the Temple of Zuul. So very, very cool. Unfortunately, Spot didn't pick up all the diorama pieces with one of the previous waves that we looked at on this channel. So unfortunately, my diorama is slightly incomplete. I might try to find the whole set, but really, truthfully speaking, the diorama is so large, I just don't have the space to accommodate having that fully on display. Needless to say, for Gozer, Gozer comes with the interchangeable head, also comes with an extra pair of hands, and of course the very large building at the background there, or part of the building. Side of the box showcases Gozer. I found her interesting looking. Not even just speaking from a standpoint of her as the character, but I always find the actress to be very interesting that played Gozer. Back of the package also shows the other available figures. There's the Walter Peck and Slimed Peter Venkman. Collect all 15 figures and you can build this right down here. This looks very cool. Again, do I have the space to accommodate it? Unfortunately, no. So I'm not probably going to finish the entire thing, but we'll still look at the figures nonetheless that are going to be released through the subsequent waves here. Gozer the Destructor was worshipped as a god by the Sumerians, Mesopotamians, and Hittites starting around 6000 BC. A few thousand years later, ghosts of worshippers were driven underground by the followers of the Tiamat, and Tiamat banished Gozer from this world. Gozer the Traveler journeyed from world to world, sending two servants, Zuul the Gatekeeper and Vince Clortho the Keymaster, to herald Gozer's coming, at which point the champion of that world would choose the form of the Destructor. For instance, during the resuscitation of the Voldronian, Gozer appeared as a large torb. A cult of Gozerians resurfaced in the early 20th century in New York City, building a temple that once would again allow Zuul, Vince Clortho, and eventually Gozer to access this dimension. Very creative background there. This 7-inch scale figure is based on the 1984 feature film Ghostbusters and features multiple points of articulation as well as accessories and diorama parts. It was also sculpted by Gentle Giant Studios. To check out more from the folks over at Diamond Select, head over to www.diamondselecttoys.com. You can also head over to www.ghostbusters.com if you ain't afraid of no ghost. Spot's going to take a break and get this opened up, but when we come back, we're going to get a better look at Gozer the Destructor. There's more anyway, guys. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. The very first thing we'll look at, which comes included with Gozer, is what appears to be the top portion of the rooftop diorama. So I'm assuming that the flooring will run along the bottom here, and these will be one of the pillar posts that's going to attach to the top. It's very large, and unfortunately, part of me feels like disappointed that with the second wave, I got the retail release of the figures, so those figures didn't come with the diorama pieces. I wish actually that Diamond Select would give you the option, or would not have given you the option, I should say, where the figures would have just simply come with the diorama pieces. But I guess from their logic, not everyone's going to be collecting this. Some people more so would just be interested in the figure and less in the diorama. So I guess they gave you the option. If you didn't want the diorama piece, that's fine. You could simply just go the route of getting the retail release figures, and it wouldn't have all of this. I missed my chance with the second wave, and basically since then, I just have these extra pieces that are sitting. I haven't really built anything with it, and therefore I don't know if I would again be going and trying to complete this entire diorama, just simply for the fact that I just don't have space. Unless I put this on the top of a shelf somewhere, it's going to take up a lot of space. Super cool detail, lots of just little intricate sculpts to it. I really can't do anything with it just because it's going to be so incredibly big. Just going to put that to the side for the time being. Okay, so let's have a look at Gozer. If you're curious, no, she did not come with the display stand. I just happened to use one of my display stands sitting around because unfortunately this figure has a tough time standing, mostly due to the fact that she's wearing these high heels and there's very little footprint that will actually touch a surface. Putting her on a smooth surface is not so much the issue, but putting her on this surface, she falls right over. The figure, let's take her off the display stand. There we go. We'll put that to this. We'll put that right there for now. The figure as a whole is pretty good. I do find, and having seen the movie recently, I do find that she is either too short, this figure it is, or her head is too big. I can't quite place which one I feel more. Like, I know Gozer in the movie appears to have a fairly large head. But this particular figure, I do feel as if like the head might be a little too big, that her body either should have been longer to compensate for the larger head, or the head could have been maybe just a little smaller. There are two variations also to the head. The one that you see currently, this is the default head getting her out of packaging, but then there's also this head here as well. Now, looking at the two, they're not really that much different from one another. The paint seems like it's a little bit cleaner on this particular one versus this one right here. It also looks to me, if I hold the two up side by side, it does actually look like it's the same head sculpt. And this one right here, if I can get really close on the camera here. Let's bring the camera right in. Does it not look like her mouth is actually the same sculpted open, and they've simply painted the teeth? Let me give you another idea of what I'm talking about. It looks like if you look at the two, the teeth seem to be in the same spot. The mouth also seems to be the same size. It does make me think it's making use of the same head sculpt, and they've just painted the teeth in on the default head. There's really not a lot of difference between the two heads to warrant personally having both heads included. If you were going to include two heads, I wish that they had actually given the head where she's got her mouth open and she's almost screaming, rather than having two very, very similar looking heads as the two options available. We'll go ahead and take the head off this existing neck here, the existing head I should say on the neck, and replace it with the one that I feel is a little bit better in sculpt. And I think what I might also do too, let's just look at where the ball joint is. I think the ball joints this head could be pushed down a little bit further. I'm deliberately going to bring the head and kind of keep it a little higher up than normal, because I think one of the problems also with this figure getting in and out of packaging was that the head was too far down the neck. I wonder if by just compensating it a little bit, almost bringing the head right to the point where it would come off the socket, that actually looks a little bit better, because you can see a little bit more of the visible neck. The way it was before, it looked like I guess the problem is too, like, look at where the ball socket sits. That's how much extra face is going to come down on the neck. If the joint is way up here, but the head, the lower part of her face, goes so far down, it does do a really good job of covering a lot of the neck, which I think is that's how it was. Let's just see if I can bring it up just a little bit further. So like, there's the ball joint. Let's see if I can get it right to the very top of that before let's actually just barely get it attached. Yeah, that's actually a little bit better. That's a little bit better. Now you've got a little bit more of the neck visible. It still looks like it's an awfully big head though. It does look like it's a little bit better though. Now, the rest of her body is, it's kind of a hard thing to describe. She essentially looks like she's wearing bubble wrap that's been airbrushed, and then there's just all this extra stuff on her. I thought initially watching her in the movie, I thought she actually wasn't wearing clothing, but I guess it's instead she's got this kind of bubble wrap, cotton candy concoction all over her body. The figure does a good job of recreating that, especially now that, because Gozer is so very glanced. You only see like a quick glance of her, and then it cuts away. And then you see another angle of her, and then it cuts away. This at least gives you a more full, straight-on look as to what she looks like. Of course, not with the high heels here, and then the Ghostbusters right down there, which is such an iconic scene. And of course, one where she's tumbling through the air and then lands down in front of the Ghostbusters. Coloring is good for, again, what it needs to be. The pinks and a varying level of light pinks, dark pinks, and then all these little spheres that are all over her body. If you favor something a little bit different in the way of her hands, by the way, her hands currently are just a pair of flat palms. They give you, they give you alternate hands, but truthfully, there's really not much different with those hands either. It's almost like that. It's almost the same as the head. The hands are just so drastically curved that it doesn't really make too much of a difference versus what was already sitting in the socket. So we take the hand out, put the new hand in. There's the new hand. There's the old hand. Other than, yeah, one's just slightly a little bit more flat than the other, but easily so. They could have just taken these hands out completely, like that, and just given us these hands as the default hands. Unless the plan was to have her maybe shooting electricity or something. Maybe that's why the hands are straight as they are, but she doesn't come with anything like that. Unless maybe additional figures down the road will come with some electricity or something that she can project from her hands. And maybe that would be the explanation as to why these hands are flat the way that they are. In the way of her posability, let's go through that together. Her head is on that ball joint that we already had looked at. Nice range of motion there. Hinged shoulders. They rotate slightly all the way around, but then she's got the big bubbles on her shoulders, so it does limit it a little bit. Bend at the elbow, a rotation in the forearm. And she has the same rotation and hinge also in her hands. She has an upper torso ball joint. Doesn't really move too much. Just, again, be the way the sculpt is on the figure. A forward, a back, and out motion on the legs. She has a double hinge on the knee. And she also has a hinge. I want to say an ankle pivot, but basically just a hinge on her foot. It's a good figure for the sense that we are getting a Gozer. Again, I don't feel like the head is all that much different, that if the head and the hands were so close to one another, I wish they had gone a more drastic approach with giving us something a little more like energy, things that could come out from her fingers, or at least giving us the more screaming looking Gozer, rather than giving us heads that don't really look that much different from one another. It's a good looking figure. Still feel like the head is a little bit too big though. But all around, a good looking figure, and looks great then to have this on display, even though I'm not probably going to get the entire rooftop. It's going to be a good looking figure to have on display with the Ghostbusters confronting her. Maybe we eventually get like a Stay Puft. That would be good too as well. Today's Toy Spot, we were having a look at the new Ghostbusters. I think this is what, wave 3? We're looking today at Gozer the Destructor. Stay tuned, guys. Spot's going to have more Toy Spots heading your way. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.